Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Experts Podcast with me, Ben Richards, and Jack Jiggins. If you don't tune into these every week, we share the highs and lows of running multiple businesses, 6, 7, 8-figure businesses, all in the property and construction sector. We run property investment and development businesses, architecture practices, surveying companies, HMO portfolio building companies, and social housing portfolio as well. So there's lots to learn. Every week is jam-packed, full of actionable steps that you can take to grow your business and be better and do better. So we welcome you here. If you're tuning in on the podcast, thank you very much. Please do leave us a review and rate us on Spotify. And if you're tuning on YouTube, it's probably the best place to be because you can see a lot of the visual things that we are talking through, and this week is very visual. So if you're listening on the audio podcast, do head over to YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, and check out the video content as well. So without further ado, it's the 5th of December. It's the 6th of December today, and the agenda is as follows. Jack has some really interesting stuff to talk about from his Goldman Sachs program. He's been doing 10,000 small business program with Goldman Sachs over the last many weeks, and it's coming to a head now in terms of like finalizing the course and presenting and all that sort of stuff. So he's got lots of really great findings to share with you all. I'm going to be talking a little bit about goal setting. Obviously 2024 is coming to an end and 2025 is just about to start. We want 2025 to be your best year yet. So I'm going to be talking about how to set goals and top tips from us on that. Jack's going to be talking about whether to rent versus sell. Always one of the big questions, depending on where you are in life, where you are in the country. Jack's going to be talking you through in detail. How to prepare for new electric connections. This really is a bit of a deep dive. It'll go over some people's heads completely, but it's incredibly important when you're doing property developments to understand how new connections of utilities are made on your sites, because it's always a thing that delays things, costs loads of money, causes loads of delays. So I'm going to be talking you through a real sort of deep dive into how we've done some of our recent electrical connections on one of our sites. Jack's off to Dubai, and he's doing lots of exciting stuff, to be honest. I wish I was heading out there, but with a new baby, it probably wasn't best. But yeah, Jack is off to Dubai, and he's going to be touching on why he's doing that, who he's doing it with. It's got some great company, which I'm very jealous about. So stay tuned for that. Got a couple of book recommendations. We've got some business plans that you can take away, actionable templates that you guys can use in your own business to plan for growth and look ahead and create cash flows and all that sort of stuff. So there's some really great stuff coming on later in the episode. There's always businesses are never sort of growing in a linear fashion, and there's always sort of 4 phases of any business, and I'm going to be talking about what those 4 phases are, so you're going to want to stick around until then. And then we've got some referrals within across the businesses that we work with. We have a massive network, and we like to share that network with everyone that's listening in. So we're going to be talking you through some of the associated companies that we have affiliations and referrals and discounts with, just for you to use. And then, as always, get your questions in down below. That's what makes these great, because every week we'll have something live to talk about that is an actionable question from the audience. So without further ado, Jack, you've been busy away, scribbling away in the Goldman Sachs presentations.
Yes, I have. So yeah, I can't really share the full presentation because there's a lot that's sort of behind closed doors, but I've got some snapshots of what I presented in the Goldman Sachs. So if you haven't heard on the last episodes, for 4 months now, I've been studying and working in the Goldman Sachs program, which is their 10,000 small business support, which they run through predominantly Oxford University at the Side Business School. It's an absolute crazy course. I'd highly recommend you go on. I mean, the faces that you can see if you're watching other growth leaders that are in their own space, you know, going through a few. There's recruitment companies, accountancy companies, a lady that has Matcha Tea, media studios. There's a fabrication company. There's a guy that cuts all the foam for sofas and mattresses. So yeah, literally, There's a woman that runs a company called Humble Crumble, which is producing crumble and selling it on a retail perspective. So literally every end of the spectrum. But the most important thing is everyone that we're rubbing shoulders with is in like growth mode or really taking their business seriously and changing the sort of landscape in their sector. And this week just gone, so Monday and Tuesday, we had our last residential. And on Monday, it was back-to-back presentations where everyone was presenting to basically like a panel, almost like Dragon's Den style, the rest of their cohort within the class, and some Goldman Sachs leaders, so people that are very high up in Goldman Sachs. And what we were presenting is one of our challenges is to identify growth areas of the business, and then we had to present about those growth areas to the room. Now, first off, I was a little bit apprehensive with this, and I've actually found myself way more nervous delivering this presentation than any other presentation I've ever delivered. And the main issue is because you only get 8 minutes, and everyone's saying, why do we only get 8 minutes? Because realistically, if you said, what do you do for business in a context of at an event and you're having a beer, you could probably quite easily summarize it in 8 minutes. But as a presentation format, as well as to talk about areas of growth, the operations to deliver that growth, the risk for that growth, and the market, the market positioning and the market movement is really, really, really difficult to do in 8 minutes. And it did make me realize afterwards that if you actually had longer, would you share more value? Because you could probably waffle on and you'd lose the attention span. And I loved it. It was, imagine sitting in a room where you've got, tens of people just one after another summarizing their business in 3 minutes, then summarizing the growth. You get such a good snapshot and deep dive into their business and what they're doing. And and I found it super fascinating. Fortunately, we weren't getting judged on our presentation skills, but where I really struggled is there's so much value that you want to communicate, because normally, if we speak in an event, we'll have 30 to 40 minutes presenting and then Q&A. So you kind of don't worry about the exact line items because you can cover those later on. So super interesting, super difficult. I think one of our group actually slipped a hip flask in because it was that nerve-wracking, but thoroughly enjoyable, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I'll be sharing. So Ben, if you want to go on to the next. So from someone that specifically speaks at property events, I had to explain what a property company do to people that don't know. And this is how I explained it, basically. And it was just basically a very dense format of like a life cycle of a project, really. And this is how I see our business. And it'll be interesting to get people's feedback. So I said, we basically secure sites, that's land, residential or commercial. We onboard an investor, which is one of our key customers and clients. We then design and develop that project. We sell or rent it, and that's where we meet our second key customer or client, which is the user or the consumer or the buyer. And then last but not least, we do this, which is sharing what we do. And that's our third sort of key customer and client, which is our viewers, our people that end up being mentees, our people that come on our boardroom, or even people that we joint venture with. And weirdly, I've never described that quickly what we do in a presentation, because normally everyone knows what we do. And then I alluded to say the best, and it's a cycle where we are always reinvesting in the property, in the business, in the growth. And Ben, I'm sure Ben will talk about that later on with the Storm, Reform and Perform. But it was just interesting saying it's so dumbed down, but then people saying to me, it's a very complicated business, but you enabled us to actually understand what it is, what you did. And I put a little photo on the left-hand side of I thought a police station would be a cool one for them to see, because I find a lot of non-property people don't understand how a commercial conversion is exciting. So I shared this police station because everyone knows what a police station looks like. Everyone knows that specifically the police are consolidating stations. And we obviously added significant value in planning on that particular site, getting planning for 3 houses. So that was a snapshot of how I tried to onboard everyone of what we did. A challenge for yourself, which I think would be really good. If you're out there raising investment, maybe practice this as is almost like an elevator pitch for you to talk to people that aren't in property, because I've never really been in that environment before where you're talking to people that really don't. Most people that we speak to are in property or investing in property. is very rarely that we're like converting someone into investing from something. Then there's normally that sort of will and desire already, so they get it. But it was super challenging for me to have to actually, you forget what you know, and you forget that you might, I was actually chatting to an investor today who was talking about, they went to an event last night in London about sort of incubating companies, and he said there was loads of lingo that he didn't understand. And a good question for yourself to ask is, what lingo are you using, communicating what you do to people that aren't in property, so that you're not sort of leaving them behind from understanding the sort of breadth of the business. We can go on to the next one.
It's fraught with lingo and stuff in like property education platforms, isn't it? Which you can spot sort of newbie investors, developers from a mile away, because they are using acronyms that actually nobody uses in the professional industry. It's just become norm in amongst all of the sort of property education platforms.
Yeah, completely agree. We can go on to the next slide. Actually, one thing that I did want to say before we moved on from that slide is one thing that when you're in a room that are B2C, real retail-led businesses, some of the businesses that were doing presentations are selling thousands of units to customers every week. And that's just so alien to us, because, we don't sell that much to customers. And one thing that has really enabled me to learn is the customer's perspective on our business, on our product, how you communicate with them, even all the way back down to even before you've bought a site, all the way to considering to the end, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, we can go on to the next one now. The next one's actually just a slide. I think there's a few pop-up bits as well, Ben, which we have in our presentations normally, but I just wanted to give a synopsis to everyone there and look at the growth and the changes. I feel that this actually is really in tune with Ben's storm, reform and perform. And I feel that we're now at the reform and perform phase. And you can actually see in there our growth in 2019 and 2020 was 166%, which is, crazy for any business. And there are businesses in my growth group that are growing 400% a year, some even more. But they weirdly, what I took away from that is, for a development company to turn over 10 million is not actually too difficult with the right people around you. It could be 3.5 million pound sites, but for a product-based business to turn over 10 million is really, really, really difficult. But when you get to 10 million, why not 100 million? Because it's a very scalable business model. You're basically creating a product, and all you've got to focus on is getting the sales and bringing the operations in line. So that was interesting to compare, our style of business, which I think is completely unique, to, other more retail-led businesses that I think out of the whole 60 cohort, I would argue we're probably in the top 5 in terms of value of revenue. And there's a few other businesses out there, for an example, a guy, he basically piggybacks off the soda stream model, where if you have a soda stream, you have to package up and post the soda stream wasted gas yourself. His business is replacing it out your doorstep, so you don't have to do that. And he's turning over about 2.5 million, but his estimated turnover in 5 years' time is 50 million. So you can kind of just see the complete difference between that business model to ours. We could get to the 50 million sooner, but our margins will actually remain similar on the project. So our margin is quite consistent all the way up, whereas his is almost like the hockey stick effect, which is, pretty crazy. But yeah, cool to compare to completely different businesses. This is I think, Ben, you probably saw this the other day. We have to think about our purpose. And they always say that it's got to scare you a little bit, and it's got to be, ambitious, time bound, and it's also got to consider your values and what's important to get you there. But this is one that I came up with. This hasn't been corroborated with Ben, so this is just sort of me in my course.
I saw this and wonder where this came from.
Yeah, so it's to deliver 1,000 homes and £1 billion worth of property in the UK before 2040, and collaborating with trusted investors. Ben, if you tap next, we also had to do core values. And I feel that, we're 20% there for units. We're already 10% there for value. well, almost 10%. And I feel like it's achievable, but I think it really summarizes our business really well. And one thing I loved about the purpose is it's all well and good saying this is our business, but if you can't actually understand where you're going, it's kind of, it loses a lot of substance, and also or like authenticate, like what's the terminology? Like authentication. I feel like the authenticity really comes around by, this is where I'm at in my journey and this is where I'm going. I'm actually not a massive fan of the word journey, because it pisses me off when someone says like my business journey. That's one of the lingo items that I don't really like. But if you can understand the end goal, you get really excited. And an example of this is the like TikToks and Instagram videos that are going. If you log on, and one that I've been patched on really is DeChambeau, the famous golfer that's just won the Open. He's had more views on his videos messing around at his house trying to get a hole in one at his house than he has actually winning a huge golf tournament. And the principle of that is, when you log on and when you go on Instagram, I sound like an old person now, log on. When you go on Instagram and someone's doing a challenge, so his is, I'm hitting golf balls over my house every day until I get a hole in a one. You know what the end journey is, and you get so drawn into following that journey. But if he just said, today I'm going to hit golf balls over my house, you'd probably watch that one video, but wouldn't be as sort of engaged and build a connection with that exact person. And I feel that's one other thing that's really come to light. You've kind of got to, I've never said to our investors what the end goal is or what would be an achievement. We just think that profitability on that project is what we need, and then they're fixated on that. But I believe being part of the bigger journey might open doors. They might make introductions. They might obviously think about investing with you time and time again. So I think that's really important. And then values, which is something that we're hopefully doing towards the end of this year in XP, and we've never actually done it. And I tried to create values that resonate across the whole group, so it's not just XP Property. But I came up with, they say try and do between 3 and 5. If you can keep it to less, they're more memorable. So I stuck with 3, and that was ambitious, transparent, and creative. There were some other ones around there, like expert in the field, or consistent. But I just feel short, sharp works well. Ben, it'll be good to get your views on that in general.
Yeah, I think it pretty much sums us up. I mean, I was going to say, when we originally sort of set out on stuff as a very quick, it was almost like we didn't really talk about it. It was just like, make the presentation and add some nice words, or even make our website and add some nice words. And that was expert knowledge, an expert team, honesty and integrity. And then we had, I think, actually exponential sort of returns for partners. But that's not as, I mean, there's a few values in there, but definitely not as succinct as what you've got there with ambitious, transparent, and creative.
I think the thought process is, if we went to one of our investors and said, how do you find working with us? And they had sort of subliminally heard us talk about our values, or seen it in the office, or it would be much more front of mind. And then it's consistent between the client, us as a business, our staff. So from like the ground up, you're building this consistency of like delivery and expectations, and you can quite easily see if someone's falling outside of that. So at first you sort of just come up with some interesting words that you think describe what you're doing. But I feel that and I would say this is quite similar across the board, even in XP surveys and in Central Suites. Obviously Aura's more your baby, but I think that we could say that in the other businesses too.
Yeah, I think an interesting exercise would actually be to ask everyone listening, like when you see what we do and listen into these sessions, like, how would you describe us to other people, or how do you describe us to other people? Let us know in the comments below. And I think we should probably ask our investors, Jack, as well. What do they think? We sort of exude, because we might have a different view of ourselves than they have of us, which is also wrong, because it all needs to align. But I think we should try and crowdsource some of those.
Yeah, there might be a prize if someone comes up with a value that we actually believe should be in there, but it isn't already. So get typing.
Get your comments in. Nice. Anything else on?
I can't remember if that was the last slide.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just to summarize, I suppose one of the beauties of it, and you probably can sort of get that impression from the businesses that I'm surrounded by, how completely different they are. You know, we did the finance module and it kind of broke the system when I put ours into it, because it's just such a unique style of business. But I think the big takeaway that I've had from the presentation is property is a game that you're capital raising from a very early on. I would actually argue there was probably 5 people out of the 60 that have considered capital raising before. And that was just so alien to me. We had a finance capital raising panel at the end. No one knew anything about loan to values, personal guarantees, debentures, none of that stuff. And I feel that property, you get a bit of a lead start on that because it's deal one. You also don't know who might be out there that you can learn off for various different reasons. What I've definitely taken away from the course is you can kind of never stop learning in business because it's forever evolving. One of the modules was AI. You know, anyone that hasn't been through business education in the last 3 years won't be skilled up or have learned anything about that. So there's always this opportunity for continuous improvement. There are little gaps in the market where you can really capitalize on value. And it's crazy to see the different struggles people go through as far as business. You know, people talking about, you know, they haven't considered their payment terms to support cash flow. And I was like, well, you know, you can pay on your Amex card and then pay it off Capital and Tap. And there was this guy that supplies plastic for 3D printers. And he hadn't even, you know, integrated any of that into his business. And he said that would put him into a cash flow positive position rather than his current cash flow negative position. So yeah, it's been amazing sharing that time with others in the room. But I suppose the main key takeaways are, what are your values in your business? It's a good question to ask yourself. What is the end goal, or what is the purpose that you're in this for? And consider that. Who are your customers? Because weirdly, we don't really think about that in property. Rightmove is just a customer. You just put something on Rightmove and that's it. But actually thinking about that will build a brand that will have more robustness in the market and create USPs. And then also, what does growth look like for you? And we'll come on to that a little bit more with Storm, Reform and Perform. But I was mentoring someone yesterday evening and I was kind of like, all of this strategy stuff is kind of irrelevant until we know your goals, because the strategy is the vehicle, the goals are the destination. And you really, really have to dial down on what that goal looks like. So if your 3 goals cash flow, don't go into a big development, go into HMOs, because this particular mentee had HMOs. And I was like, that's a great place to start. If you're already there, do more until you hit your cash flow goal, and then focus on, you know, your other goals like 1,000 homes or whatever it may be. But yeah, we can move on now.
Nice. Yeah, I've just looked at the time and realized this could be a long episode, but it's going to be jam packed. So stay tuned in.
I will have to dive off in like 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, crap. Yeah. So Jack's talked about there being, you know, scary goals and looking at 2040, which certainly is scary to me. But you know, that's where you need to start. Like Jack says, you have to think about, you know, where you want to end up and then kind of almost work backwards. And we're going into 2025, so it's a perfect opportunity for you guys to sit down, think about what you want, and hopefully there's a few things that top tips that we can give and how we generally do this type of thing that you can take away. And before I get into it, you know, this template is available. So if you want this template, do reach out to us, email us at info@xpproperty.co.uk, and we can send you a link to get access to this. But we call it strategy on a page. We've been through it before sort of numerous times, but I want to talk about some other top tips that I think will really help you kind of with that goal setting for going forward. And the top tips, there's 5 top tips I've got for you, and Jack's already touched on one, and that is about working backwards from actually what you want. Like Jack says, yeah, what is your goal? Until you know that, you can't really set goals. You can't know what you're going to be doing next year if you don't really know where the North Star is for you. So work back from that, and that generally comes from what you want as a business owner. You know, in that Goldman Sachs cohort, for example, every single person in that group will want something different. Some of those businesses might be lifestyle businesses where actually they want to create something that works relatively passively without them because they want to spend time with their family. We've got other people that will want to be super successful, build a whole empire, go to the moon and all that sort of stuff. And everyone in between is playing their own game. So make sure you're really clear on actually what you want as a business owner, you want as a person, and then you can make your way back from there. And a problem or something I haven't done in the past that has turned out to be such a wrong way of thinking about things is not involving my team in that process. Sitting down with the team at Aura, sitting down with the team at XP. In XP over the last couple of years, every quarter we've done a strategy kind of goals session where we've literally sat down for 2 or 3 hours at a time, got pizzas in. Jack and I have done a presentation about all of the businesses in the ecosystem, explained where we're headed, what we've done, crowdsource ideas about how to improve things. And, that you are only as good as your team. So you need to be involving your team in those processes and help you set goals. And part of what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of weeks is sitting down with XP, sitting down with Aura and looking at 2025, starting off with things that are broken. So asking the team for their feedback, which hasn't always come very easily. I watched something with Daniel Priestley the other day about asking for challenges within your business, like asking for confrontation, because that's what you want, because that's where the best ideas grow from. If you've got somebody saying, look, I think we could do this better this way, and you've got somebody else saying, well, I think you could do it this way, that's only going to sort of stir ideas and promote kind of better practices and better way of doing things. So involving your team, challenging the norm. Don't be the leader, the dictator that kind of throws yourself into those environments with saying, well, this is how I want to do it. This is what we're going to be doing for 2025 because this is what I want. You're only as good as your team. As long as you're sharing your vision with them about where you want the sort of overarching business to go, how you tweak and improve things within that business should be crowdsourced from your team for sure. Be smart with them. So I did actually have to look up what those actually mean, which is I think it is. I got it here.
I actually think I know. Specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, and time bound.
Yeah, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Yeah,
there's a business degree coming out.
And then then the sort of big one I think after that is actually that they're realistic, because it's no good starting out at the start of the year and being, I'm going to buy 20 houses, I'm going to grow my team by 200%. Like, it's not a realistic goal, especially if you've maybe just had a baby or you've got other things going on in your life. You have to be realistic with these goals. Business goals are one thing, but creating habits for yourself, having personal goals that you want to achieve. If you're running a business, it's because you want to sustain the personal lifestyle that you want to live. So, what are you doing personally? What goals are you setting for yourself? Is that I want to be body fat percentage of X, I want to go on 6 holidays this year. Once you know that personally, you can also it will help your businesses, will help you know what to do within your business to then try and achieve those things as well. And the final thing, top tip, is about telling everybody. Like, once you've got your goals, get everyone else to hold you accountable to them. The more people you tell, I guarantee the more chance of succeeding and doing those things will be, because you've got all them. You've told the world, you've told social media, you've told your team, you've told everybody. You are subconsciously now more aware of what needs to happen to get you to those goals. So make sure you're telling everybody.
Can I actually add another layer into the telling everybody one?
Yep.
Because on the mentoring call I was doing yesterday, he's a young lad, mid-20s. He told me his goals, and I actually don't think they were ambitious enough. So just one layer in there is like sound test it with someone else that might have, being a similar thing to you or done a little bit more than you, because I actually said that's, he wanted to do one more house before his, within the next 12 months. And I said, well, where you're at, I think you could do 2 or 3. So actually sound checking with someone to make sure you're not too ambitious or not too conservative.
Nice. Good one. And then just very quickly, if you haven't seen us go through this before, this is the strategy on a page document template that we generally use. The first tab is all about blue sky thinking. What's your vision within the various elements of your business? So all businesses will have various different elements: sales, marketing, finance, operations, talent. Your vision is probably down to these types of things. So finance, your team, your operations, your marketing, you as a leader within those businesses. What's the purpose? Why are you doing this? What passions do you have? What service are you trying to provide? What opportunities do you think there are? What financial purpose are you doing? And then what lifestyle do you want to lead? What's your USP? What market space are you in? What's your company promise? What are you aiming to give to the world? And then also, what are your top 5 values, which Jack was talking about earlier? We need to kind of redo our XP property ones. And then with the BGIs, which is business growth indicators or KPIs, key priority indicators, whatever you want to call them, we then break them down into 12 months, quarterly, and monthly kind of key objectives and key actions. So if you want a template and then explain a video of kind of how we run this scenario, and this is the types of things that we do within our boardroom group, then message us down below or email info@XP Property, and we can send you a link to all of these. Cool. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully everyone has their best 2025 yet. And maybe at the beginning of January, we can maybe share some of our goals on these calls so you can see an insight into where we're headed. And like I've just said there, telling everybody will help you become more accountable to them. Cool. Point number 3, half an hour in, rent versus sell.
Yeah, I won't spend it. Again, came from the call that I did yesterday. So this mentee lives in an area where we were talking about pound per square foot values and what to hold, what to sell. He sort of came in with a view that he wants to hold everything. And it's the old age question, really. Do you rent or do you sell? A good friend of mine, Stuart Wyeth, he was Mr. Hold. And since interest, Mr. Sell. So I think and that's actually that's not him being convinced. That's like an absolute mind shift that he's had from being, I always used to think that the rent versus sell, some people just are born in the sense that they always want to hold everything, and it's really difficult to pull those people away from that. So things to consider if you're rental selling. So starting off with capital values, I think that if you're operating in areas sort of below 400 a square foot, you're probably better off renting, because then you accumulate value from the yield, and you're not working against yourself by always building low value stock, because the build costs don't differ too much in different areas. You can also look at the age of the business. I think the best time to sell is in the early days of the business, and then when you've got strong cash flow, strong asset base, and financially a little bit more stable, then holding more at that point. It's always difficult because you always think, I wish I hold that, I wish I didn't sell that. But if you're looking at what you're doing in the business, it's okay to sell something if that's creating value and reducing the opportunity cost within your business. So go through that mindset thinking of, actually selling it. Granted, in 10 years, you're not going to own it, but what have you generated as cash flow, business, salaries, growth, that has actually gone into? So definitely consider the age of the business. So I'd probably say that a healthy split is between 50 and 100% sales up to the age of 5, and then start to tether it out as you grow from there. Interest rates, obviously we've had a difficult market.
5 years young in your business, Jack.
Yes, 5 years in your since you set up the business. Put it this way: if XP sold everything that we'd set up in the first 5 years, we'd be probably reinvesting our own capital in our own projects more, sooner, which is then obviously generating value within our business. Interest rates, it is a moving market, so do consider that when you're taking projects on. We often have almost a pivotal point, definitely in Central Suites, and I think we did it on the Maltings as well in XP, like almost creating the scheme so that you can pivot if you need to, so that you're thinking about the designs, the finishes, will it rent and sell well, and that's a clear consideration that you should make. And then last but not least, goals, which fills back into the age of the business. If your goals is to run a development business and you want to replace your income, you might hold the first few assets for rent roll that cover your overheads as a person, and then go into the development space. But if you're, for example, you've already got an income that's fairly passive and it can allow you to focus on other things, you might not need to consider that and just sell. So let's develop, the Shanley Worlds of the group sell all of their residential stock. They don't own a single residential asset, and they're, huge. And then you've got others which don't actually sell any, and this is typically more obvious with SME developers, because, we're the more investors than just straight land developer, national home builders. But it's definitely a thought process that everyone should be thinking about. And because it's not as simple as oh, I created X amount of value on that project. Brilliant. I'll refinance it. Actually, what does the business need? Where is the business going in the next 3 years? And to think about that while you're actually strategically taking on those sites. Our current model is probably about sell 70 to keep 30%. And that 30% is high cash flow stock that we're generating mostly HMO of. Because if we did a 50-50, you can't pay your staff with that equity in that portfolio. So you really need to consider how you're going about exiting schemes. It's really, really important.
Nice. Top tips. Cool. So this one will be a relatively long one, but it's something that I get stumped with and all my team gets stumped with on a regular basis. And it's something that I hear a lot of other developers really struggle with. And it causes huge amounts of delays, costs a fortune, creates a lot of headache, a lot of grey hairs, a lot of people pulling their head out. And it's new utilities connections, which I've spoken about before. But this one's specifically about electrical connections, really going to be giving a 101 of how this process works practically on site, with photos that have been taken over the last couple of weeks on various ones, various projects of ours, will help you really get a picture of what it means when SSE send a map to say they're going to be doing a pot end over here and a new connection over here and a wavecon over, like all of these words that probably complete gibberish to you, but you're expected to understand what they mean and how they are installed on site, and almost sometimes coordinate those things with your contractor, who again sometimes sees does these installations relatively regularly, but every site is different. And every new connection is probably slightly different. So I'm going to be talking you through what a BNO network is. If you're doing a commercial conversion, then most of your electrical connections and where you're setting up your flats will be what's part of a BNO network. Where your electrical meters go and where they can and can't go. What's an MPAN number, and how it relates to your site and ongoing energy within the building. How to prepare for these connections, when to start, what you order and at what stage in terms of like the logical kind of route of going through that process, and what you need to start thinking about when. So let's jump into it. So a BNO network is a building network operator. So effectively you as the building owner, as the developer, become a building network operator. Gone are the days where SSE or UKPN, which are the two main electrical utilities contractors or providers, in the UK. Gone are the days where they actually take ownership of something beyond the connection into the building. What happens is when the main head comes into the building, which is in this image on the right hand side, so this main head coming up through the floor, which you can see where, hopefully you can see where I'm pointing, into this big fused kind of mains head on the Ryfield board, which is this, a Ryfield board is this sort of dark board that it's fixed to. That is where the SSE or UKPN fixing stops. So everything beyond this point is a building network, BNO network, and that will be done by your own contractors. So this is where the head comes in. What you generally provide is an isolator. The mains head comes in. That's the first level of the connection that SSE or UKPN will make. And then at a later stage, someone like Siemens, in this case, will come in and make it live. So before, so the head comes in, and at a later date, somebody will come out, stick a big sticker on it like this, stick a big, live caution type thing on it to say that head is now live. And everything else beyond that is created by your main contractors. So what you see on the left-hand side here is a sort of relatively typical setup. You've got the mains head coming in. All of these individual white boxes are for each flat. So you've got a sort of RCD sort of trip here. This grey box contains more fuses. You've got all of the tails going in. This isn't finished, by the way. This is obviously mid work. And all of these individual connections here are for each individual flat. Now, electrical meters can go in this cupboard, but if you've got a small cupboard like this and there's not enough space, then you'll have to put meters within each flat. It doesn't make too much difference, Most times nowadays, meters are smart meters, so they're read kind of automatically. Nobody has to come out and lift the lid up and open a cupboard and send in their meter readings. Most are smart meters nowadays, so the meters can actually go within this cupboard, which I quite like because they are just all in one place and it takes up less space within the flats. But if you're short on space in the communal area, then they can actually go in the flats as well. So what's an MPAN number? So once you've got your meters in situ, you will get what's called an MPAN number. You've got an MPAN number, an NPRN number, which is for gas. The MPAN number looks like this, if you can see this. Yeah, there it is. So it's a like 14, 15 digit number. That is a specific number to the meters themselves. So I've got the new property address here and the MPAN number specific to the smart meter associated with that flat is noted next to it. So these sorts of plans are something that you're maybe, if you've got a utility consultant on board, they can help you with. They can help you allocate which flat has which MPAN number. But I like to certainly kind of have real clarity on where things are going on site, because a sheet just showing the address and the MPAN number, we know from facilities management in the past, so hard to dictate which meter goes with which flat, which one's the landlord's, which one's for flat 6, all that sort of stuff. So having a plan that really clearly shows where these meters are going is useful for every single person working on the project, your builder, your utilities consultant, your facilities manager, anyone involved. In this particular case, the images that I showed you previously are in this little cupboard here. So within this porch, we've got the electrical meter cupboard. As you enter, this serves all of this side of the building. So the BNO for this particular connection serves flat 7 all the way through to 20. And we've also got the landlord supply within that as well. So we'll have the best part of 14 meters for residential flats, and then 1 meter for the landlord supply as well. So how do you prepare for all of this? So effectively that's, within the building, this is all the gubbins and stuff that you're going to see and you're going to be connecting up. By the way, I'm not an electrician. I don't know the ins and outs of what all these connections do. I just know enough to kind of get by. But fundamentally, that's how you get everything.
You do know the technical term gubbins, though.
Gubbins. Do you know what a gubbin is? It could be anything you want it to be honest, a gubbin. But yes, a gubbin. So that's what a BNO network is. That's where your electrical meters can go. That's what an MPAN number is. And now I'm going to be talking about a little bit about how to prepare for the connections. So if you've got an existing property and you are bringing in either new connections or you are utilizing existing connections, you're going to have to do some sort of digging. Generally, you will dig about 450 deep for new connections. You can put electrics, gas, and data and water in the same trench. There's a very handy, I should bring that and show you that next time, actually, in terms of if you're digging a meter deep trench, there are specific heights in which certain things need to go. So your electric goes here, your gas goes here, your water goes here, if they are all going in the same trench, for example. But on this left-hand side, this is the existing cable coming into our office. And when you're converting office buildings, if there's already like a 3-phase office supply, you will actually find you can run quite a few flats off of that incoming supply, depending on the capacity. Now, just as an FYI, one of the new connections in our phase 1 block at St Andrew's Court serves 6 flats. And that one existing 3-phase connection had enough capacity to serve those 6 flats. We're actually also using the one 3-phase incoming supply for the 14 flats in block 2. So we're getting 14 flats off of one existing 3-phase incoming supply. Now, you won't be able to do that with a fully electric system. For example, if you've got electric heating and no gas, your electrical consumption for each flat is going to be way more than the existing capacity on the network. So because we've got gas boilers in this one, our 1-bed and 2-bed flats, I think it's like 2.5 to 3.5 kVA, which is the loading each flat takes. And then the max capacity on this connection, for example, I think it was like 69 kVA or something. So we were able to get 14 flats out of the existing incoming supply, which massively decreases our costs. The more we can get on the existing supply, the better, without having to bring in extra capacity and pay for things like additional substations offsite, which might cost you 70, 80 grand, for example. So this on the left-hand side is what they connected into. Every time you run a new cable, you have to install this electrical tape so that when people are digging, they know that if they hit that, they shouldn't dig any deeper because there's a live connection under there. What we often find, I'm not showing the right thing now, am I? Here we go. What am I doing? This one.
Ben, it might be worth sharing while you're doing that in most of our sites, we have utilities consultants that support with a lot of this utility stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth and liaising between contractor, us, the actual power network, supplier that you're using, but then also a utilities consultant outside of that.
Yeah, so even when you use a utilities consultant, be prepared to kind of understand what needs to happen and push them, and you're still going to have to do quite a bit of work yourself, even if you've got a utilities consultant. But when you do have one on board, it does make your life a hell of a lot easier. They talk the language of the utilities providers. They do it day in, day out. They know what forms to fill out, how to fill them out. You provide them off, or we often provide them a sort of letter of authority, sort of act on your behalf, and they take things forward. Could you see this earlier? This screen? I don't think I don't think I was sharing the right thing, or I was showing stuff on something that you guys couldn't see. So this was the MPAN stuff. So this little entrance hall is where the images were from the BNO network. This is what an MPAN number looks like associated with one of the plots. And that's the sort of build up. So this right hand side is 14 flats coming in off the existing connection. This is the block of 6 flats on this left hand side, again, which comes off of the existing connection that we've managed to reuse. But yeah, sorry about that. Cool. And then just going into a bit more detail. So SSE provide plans like this. I have overlaid things on this. So if I just get this out of the way, you can see that this was a SSE, Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, plan that we were sent from them to let our contractors know what needs to happen. So this is Archway Court, which I've spoken about quite a lot recently. This is the main entrance into site, and all of our utilities come in via this access way. So this arrow here that I've shown is where our existing electrical connection comes into site. It goes through this undercroft, which is this part of the building here, and then actually connects to an external sort of electricity meter, which is in like a housing here on site. So I'm going through this quite quickly, but this is an external electricity meter, which is housed in a little cupboard. This green line goes out to the front undercroft, and that is the line in which the existing connection comes in. So when we're doing new connections, because we want an additional 8 flats on this site with 8 new connections, essentially what we're having to do on site is create a trench that's about 2 meters by 1 meter. So we've dug that hole to expose the existing cable coming in. SSE come in, or their representatives or subcontractors come in. They do what's called a pot end. So where the dotted line shows here is like where it's being cut off from. So we no longer need the electrical meter down here further in the site. So we want to cut that off. So they cut off that cable, pot end it, which is what it's called, and then they make the new connection within that trench into the new BNO network, which I've just explained on the previous sort of slides. So this is what you should expect to see. This is some of the jargon that they'll hit you with, 95 wavecon, 35 by, I don't really understand that fully. I just know that I need to dig a trench for somebody to come in, make a new connection on the existing cables, and then connect it up to the new mains head within our BNO network. In terms of booking things in, the process is relatively simple, but to coordinate everything can take a while. Luckily on this site, we didn't need any public road closures or anything like that because it's all done within our property. But fundamentally, you're going to be booking in your new connections. You provide them with a plan saying this is how many flats we've got. This is the loading and the capacity of what we need. And this is how many new connections we want. They'll plan in a date where they'll tell you that you need to do this. So they've said here, customer to excavate a joint bay and trench into the building for the new B&O supply. So that's basically us digging the trench into our site, digging a hole around the existing cable for them to come in and pot end the existing and connect up the new ones. Once that trench is dug and they've made the new connections and installed the mains head, your contractor will create the B&O network, which is the board and all of the fuses and stuff that come off of that. Then you need to book in and cool off your meters. So that could be with E.ON, with British Gas, with anyone you want. You are then in control of who you bring in to provide you electricity into the site. All of your connections are made. The meters are installed by those providers, i.e. E.ON or British Gas or whoever you want to use. And then your contractor will then connect up to your meters to all of your apartments and create a live system that is now connected to the meter. You'll start paying your standing charge and your usage. And Bob's your uncle. There you have it. I know that's a lot. We are doing this numerous times on various sites at the moment, so it's all front of mind. So I thought it would be useful for you to see in a bit more of an in-depth breakdown. I know it's going to go over a lot of people's heads, but there will be some people watching this that get huge value from it. So hopefully that's you. And this on the right hand side, sorry, this is the fuse board you'd expect to see in your apartment. This is an example of a smart meter on the right hand side. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. Cool. If you do get value from this, we've grown follower growth of 384%. Spotify told me yesterday. In terms of our following, we're picking up good pace, and we've got you to thank for that. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. If you haven't rated us yet on Spotify, do rate us. If you haven't left a review on Apple Podcasts, then please do, because it does go a long way to getting the podcast out to more people. Cool. On to more exciting stuff like trips to Dubai.
I'm watching the clock. I've actually, just while you were filling everyone in with MPAN numbers, I was actually writing out my pack list. Because I'm being picked up in literally like 45 minutes.
Nice.
So I'm fortunate enough to be invited by Tyler Newman and Alfred Zay to be a speaker at their Dubai mastermind, which I'm super excited to be. I don't know whether I'm more excited to see Daniel Priestley speak for a day or actually to be in Dubai.
I'm very jealous of the Daniel Priestley thing. I was telling somebody else about it earlier.
Super excited. It's going to be a bit of a jaunt because I'm flying tonight and speak tomorrow. So I probably will have broken sleep and then flying back Sunday night and then back to work on Monday. So don't know where those two nights sleep are going to come from. But I've, contrary to the Goldman Sachs presentation, I've actually got 3 hours to present and sort of open forum and conversation, which I'm super excited to do. I've fortunately got a hotel that overlooks the Palms, so it'd be cool. I'm for the first time ever flying on a double-decker plane. Never flown on a double-decker plane.
Nice.
I'm gonna, like I get on a bus, I'm gonna ask for the front seat so I can see what's going on. That's a joke, obviously. But I suppose the main takeaways for listeners, because you don't want to hear about me going on holiday, and well, it's not really holiday, but anyway. But the main takeaways is one thing that actually resonates with our sort of mantra and goals is part of that goal setting. Think about surrounding yourself by winners and surrounding yourself by the positive people that are going to make positive change to you as a person, and you can do vice versa. And that's what I'm really excited about. Like it's almost like a weird feeling when you're in a room of people that are really trying to make change and grow, and you're sort of sharing that part of your business, and even if it's mindset, fitness, business planning, what sectors you're going into. Going out there to talk to future winners or existing winners and surround myself by existing winners. But I'm fortunate to speak. I'll also get a chance to see Anthony Lavelle speak. I haven't seen him speak for probably about a year, so it'll be interesting, because last time I spoke at Tyler's event a year ago, he was speaking as well. So both of us get to watch each other's presentation and see what's actually changed in a year. I have a feeling he's probably changed a little bit more because he's doing absolutely monstrous developments in his business volume property. And then that's it, coming home Sunday. So it's just a weekend in Dubai.
Madness. Well, no, enjoy it. I'm excited to see how you get on. Cool. Just a few book recommendations before we jump into something else. Lorenzo Pandolfi, who you might know and who we've used numerous times within our projects as our planning consultant, has written a book on how to thrive in the planning jungle, 100 tips for consultants, real estate developers, and architects. It's a great read. There's lots of case studies and examples and quirky things in there, which are amazing. So well done to Lorenzo for writing that. And, we're trying to share it out to the world because, planning is always one of the most difficult things to go through as a developer. The sort of things that you do get grey hairs over and try and pull your hair out because it's a pain in the arse. So, navigating that jungle with some of the tips that Lorenzo shares in this book is well recommended. So do jump in and get that. I think it's on Amazon now. So get your copy. And then I've just recently I'm halfway through, actually. I haven't completely finished it, but I sort of first heard about Bill Perkins through watching High Stakes Poker because he's a guy around the table, wasn't a poker pro, just had loads of money, and I didn't really know much about him. But he's basically sort of a multi-millionaire over in the US, fund manager. Really interesting backstory. But his book is called Die with a Zero. He's an engineer by trade, like software engineer, and fundamentally his goal in life is to be as fulfilled as he possibly can be. So the book is all about kind of solving for fulfillment. You do this for what reason? Why are you in business? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to create more money? And a lot of it is around actually the value of making memories as opposed to making money. And I just thought it's a really, really great book. I've joined the Property Entrepreneur sort of cohort for the last 3 months. I'm on their sort of year program now with Dan Hill and Adam Goff and the crew. And fundamentally, that is sort of the basis of what they want to teach as well. It's all about life by design, designing a life around what you actually want to get out of it rather than just running the treadmill, with no real vision, having goals every year that align with where you want to be, what you want to do, where you want to get to. And Die with Zero is to a certain degree that it's about designing your life around being fulfilled. And if you've made loads of money, what are you making that money for? It has to go towards something. And he does stuff to make memories. So if he's on a yacht or just bought a new yacht, it's because he wants to sail the Med with his family, and he knows how much money he needs to make to do that. So there's a target and there's a goal for that money that he's making. And that's kind of what it's all about. It's making sure that you're not leaving. Obviously, you want to leave money to your family and leave a legacy, etc. But if you're dying with millions of pounds in the bank and you've not ticked off your bucket list or done the things you really want to do in life, what's it all for? And that's what it's about. So Die with Zero, really like it so far. Still got a lot to go, but I've heard great things from people that I've recommended it to already who have read it.
Cool. Just conscious of time, but we in XP surveys and in other businesses, not necessarily so much in XP property, but I've been forced to make a bit of a business plan in the Goldman Sachs growth program. But just interesting to see out there if anyone has actually created a business plan, and it could be as sort of streamlined or as explorative as you like. I specifically obviously made it for the growth areas within our business. I obviously can't share their exact template, but we've got templates which we've shared with other followers before, and templates that we've used for business planning ourselves. And it's just good to put it all down on paper. Like, I actually feel that equally the course at Goldman Sachs has taught me quite a lot of what I would call like actual learning of like business now, some different areas of the business, but actually delving into our own business to create a business plan has enabled me to understand, let my business sort of talk a little bit more to me. And I think that that's really, really important. And actually sort of referring to another developer that we know, Dorian, he's always so sort of relaxed by the day-to-day in his business because he gets the bigger picture and he understands it. And I feel a business plan enables almost like a third party that helps you understand your own business. And the phrase comes to mind that no one else in this world knows more about your business than you do, but you never know everything about it, which is kind of saying that you can think you know everything about your business, but you haven't probably analyzed potential risks. You haven't analyzed potential opportunities for growth. You haven't considered what the goals might be behind those growth. You haven't considered, like I've completely talked about, the customer. Like, we haven't really factored any customer marketing into most of our marketing as XP around people that use our homes. In Central Suites, it's a little bit more front of mind, but as far as, you know, the selling the stock, we've more put that down to just doing something that we would like and hope that people would buy it, where there's a lot more messaging that you can put behind everything, and that's including the brochures, how we market it, how we conduct ourselves, what our website looks like. So it's a really good exercise, and if you've got any downtime between now and Christmas, I'd highly recommend, even if you just do like a bite-sized one, just to have all the sort of main areas. So for listeners out there, some areas that you could cover is overall business proposition, vision for the business, growth opportunities for the business, the goals behind that growth, sales and marketing, operations, financing the growth, risks for the business, leading the business, because obviously Ben mentioned the team is everything. If if your team are really driving the business forward for you, it's a lot less work for you then to have to manage areas around the operations to implement that sort of growth that you may want. Organization plan, the exit strategy, the roadmap for growth, and then all the appendices that support everything in. And that's sort of the framework that we used in Goldman Sachs, but you can obviously adapt that. We've got one that we pulled together for XP Surveys, which I don't know how many sort of overlapping categories it would have for sections, but I found, it's really difficult to take time out of the day-to-day and actually get into like almost what is like really time-consuming writing. But the way that it speaks back to you is you actually go, oh, that's pretty cool, or I didn't realize it was that much, or I've never summarized it in that way. And then like read it to yourself, like put it away, come back a week later, read it and see how it sort of reads. And that's an interesting process that I've been on, obviously, over the last few months. I'm supposed to submit my final submission on Tuesday, which is going to be difficult, but it is what it is. So if you would like
your flights over to Dubai,
yeah, I'll be sleeping or typing, one of the two. So if you would like any of our business plan templates, do hit up our link, which is bit.ly/XP_templates, and we will get those over to you.
Yes, we're saying that link won't work unless you do capital X, capital P, _capital T on the template. So if you're listening into this, that's it. Or you could just message one of us and we'll send you a link. Cool. Business growth, business plans, that is absolutely brilliant. You should be doing that at the start of a business. If you haven't done it at the start of the business, as soon as you possibly can, start to think about working on your business as opposed to in the business. As Jack said, it's just so important. But there's always 4 phases to a business. Business is never linear in terms of growth, and you will understand that once you get into business for a couple of years. What normally happens is you have a crazy busy period, then it plateaus, and then you have another crazy busy period, and it plateaus, and you have what the property entrepreneur people say as a step change rather than a linear kind of line. And the 4 phases of business are the form phase, storm phase, norm phase, and then perform stage. And I've realized that when I typed the message to Christina earlier, I typed preform as opposed to perform, so that's been copied through, but it's perform. And fundamentally, at the form stage, you're just at the start of your journey. You're a startup. You're just starting. You're building the foundations of your business, getting things ready to then going to growth phase, which is the storm process. So form is all about starting. Storm is the growth phase where you're really focused on sales, building that top line revenue. And then the norm phase is where you start thinking about service provision. You've gone through massive growth. You've broken everything in your business. You need to fix it again. Your customer service has been poor because all you've been focused on is getting more top line revenue in, more growth, and you haven't been talking about customer service and making sure that's as good as it can be. And that's the norm phase. So you've had really good growth. You're starting to break things and fixing it and putting things in place to make it tick along quite nicely. And then the final stage is the perform phase. And that's all about statistics, checking data, efficiencies, looking at your P&Ls, looking at your operational costs. What can you squeezing the pip, sweating the asset, all that good stuff. That is really where you start to see the money churn within the business. And I've seen this quite, with some of my business where we've gone through that big growth, we've slowed down, we've taken a breath. When you're in the growth phase, you're generally not that profitable. You're reinvesting everything. You're putting everything back into the business to continue that growth until you take a breath, stop, look at the numbers, look at the figures, look to fix everything, and start to get into that perform phase. The perform phase really is where the profitability comes. So that's really a really whistle-stop tour of the main 4 phases of any business. Which phase are you in? Let us know in the comments. The difficulty that I find when I'm doing things like the property entrepreneur process is that I've got businesses in different stages of this, and that becomes very difficult because you need a different mindset for each phase. And what I find difficult is having numerous businesses at various different phases. So I'm almost kind of very, very confused as to having the right mindset for the right business at the right time. But let us know what stage you're at down below. Would be very intrigued to know. Cool. Associated referrals and discounts. This is something that we haven't talked about for a while, actually, so it was worthwhile us bringing it back up. But we have a good network. We have a big wide network of property professionals amongst various different sectors, from finance through to sanitary ware suppliers, tax advice, insurance, building surveying, all of the good stuff that you can see on the screen. We've got good relationships with these companies. We've built referral relationships with those people where we've agreed discounts for people listening into this podcast, people that are part of our community and part of our network. So if you want any introduction to any of these people on the screen, or any other introductions for that matter, there's plenty of people that we also use that aren't necessarily on this screen at this point. Drop us an email to info@xpproperty and we can spread the word, make an introduction.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to touch on that. My Goldman Sachs cohort is obviously 60 business owners that are all doing crazy stuff. And after this last residential, where we're not formally going to all be in a group together, everyone just started sharing a referral link to their website and a discount code for their website. And it's crazy to think that's 60 businesses that are all in that group. Obviously, I couldn't really offer a discount on, someone buying a flat for their partner at Christmas, because it's not really the same market. But I just actually, every Christmas present that I'm going to be buying, I'm going to be thinking about using trusted people, and everyone in that group that I've met is a trusted person. I'd rather give them the business and also work with someone that's referred within that business. So it's just to say that, definitely reach out. If you could imagine quantity surveyors, if you could imagine anything to do with legal work or whatever it may be. Ben and I have literally tried and tested 5 different law firms. We've probably tested all of the professional consultants that you can ever think of, and have good, the bad, the ugly. And obviously we'd much rather recommend the people that we get on really well with and work with. So reach out if you do need any intros.
Nice. I think that's enough for us today. If you have enjoyed this content, if you continue to enjoy this content, please do rate us on Spotify, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And as always, we haven't had time for Q&A today, so get your questions in ready for next week down below. Comment on whatever platform you're on, and hopefully see you again next week. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.